everyone, welcome to Pour Painting with Ron. Today we're going to be doing a flip cut pour using a bit of a dangerous mix. Now when I started with my paint pouring, the first paints I bought were this brand, the Chroma A2 brand. Now they're nice and thick and the colours are lovely, but I found it really hard to get nice looking cells. For some reason these paints seem to be really reactive with the Floetrol and the silicone that I was using. I did get nice paintings but not lovely cells. Now I was wanting to use up some of my colours, so I tried doing a large swipe using my glue mix, and it turned out really horrible and I had to throw it away. But I had some colours left over and I just threw them onto a small canvas and I ended up with this painting, which turned out really well. It sort of reminded me of exotic reptile skin. So I thought I'd have a go at getting that effect happening again today. Probably won't happen, but we'll see what happens. But as I said, it's going to be a bit of a dangerous mix because I'm using these colours again and my glue mix, which failed last time. So the colours I'm using today are cadmium red and cadmium orange and cadmium yellow and cerulean blue. Now even these four colours are pretty dangerous to use together because if I'm not careful I'm going to end up with a yuck brown. If you remember back to your painting days or finger painting days at primary school, you'd mix all the colours together and you'd just end up with a brown, green, gooey, yucky mess. So that's the danger of using these colours together in a pour, but we'll see. My pouring medium today is my glue mix. I'm going to use 60% of the Elmer's glue all, not the school glue, the glue all, and 40% water. And I've just pre-mixed that in a drink bottle and pour it out as I need it. And then I'm going to use silicone oil as my cell activator today. Right, so altogether it's going to end up with being a really reactive mix. I'm hoping to get something nice like I did last time, but you never know. Now the canvas I'm going to use today is this one. I haven't gone all exotic to get a large one in case it fails, so I'm using a 30 by 40 centimetre thin edge canvas today. And as usual, I've pre-prepared it with some painter's tape on the back and some giant push pins to keep it off the surface of my table. I've also made sure it's level. My table is level, so the canvas should be level, but I just go around quickly with my leveler here on the edges to make sure the bubble stays in the middle, which it does, so my paint isn't going to run off while it dries. Now the amount of paint I need for this canvas is about 480 grams. So I've mixed up a 1-to-1 ratio of paint and glue mix, although I did need to add a bit more glue to the colours just to get it to the right consistency. So you'll see what the consistency is in a minute. So I've got heaps of paint today. I won't use it all, but it's better having too much than not enough. So let's get started. Okay, so these are my colours for today. Now I was going for the same amount of each colour, but because I had to add a bit more glue mix to some of those to get the same consistencies across all the colours, I've ended up with different amounts. But that doesn't matter. The consistency is the most important thing. So if you can see, I've kept my mix relatively thick today. So if I do the little swirl with the spoon, the bump of paint on the top stays there for just over 3 seconds or so. If I make it too thin, then there's much more risk of getting brown when I do my flip cup. So I've kept the colours quite thick, the same consistency. Now, As I said, my cell activator today is the silicone oil. Now normally you add about 1 drop for every 30 grams of paint. Now technically I should have about 120 grams in each cup, but I've made much more than that. So I'll add 5 or 6 drops to each colour. As I said, this mix is going to be really reactive, or I think so anyway. So we'll see what happens. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll just put 5, 6 in there. So there's quite a lot of silicone. We'll see what happens to that. Right then, I mix it in fairly well. So I don't want big huge blobs of silicone in my paint, because I'll end up with big huge cells and not much else happening. So I'll mix it in reasonably well. I won't over mix, otherwise I'll disperse the silicone too far and I'll just end up with lots and lots of little cells. Now the glue mix tends to have lots of air in it, which can be a bit of a problem. I've let it sit for a couple of hours, but ideally you would leave your paint sit covered for a day or so, just to get some of that air out. But I'll give it a bit of a blowtorch once I've put it on the canvas, just to help get rid of some of those air bubbles that are still there. There's still quite a lot of air. I prefer using Floetrol actually. Much less issue with air bubbles. We'll see if we get this nice chameleon skin look happening in the painting today. Remember last time I blowtorched the heebie-jeebies out of that painting to end up with my final look, because I didn't like how it looked when I poured it on, so I just kept using my blowtorch on it until I just got cells everywhere, and it ended up looking nice. Okay, so you can see there's lots of air bubbles again because I've mixed it in again. Okay, now I forgot to get my torch ready, so I'll just do that quickly before I get paint all over me. Just screws onto the top. Get it from your local hardware store. I got mine from Bunnings. Works really well. Okay, now what colour will I start with? I'll layer the paints in one cup. I just wanted to do a single cup today. If you're using a larger canvas, you may need to use a couple of cups. I might start with red. And then the orange. Just drizzle it over the top. If you just pour it in, it's going to mix with the red. I want to keep my layers. We've got orange, yellow. I'm going to get green in my painting because of the yellow and the blue together. Hopefully not too much green. We'll see. Red. I might put yellow next and then orange, just to mix it up a little bit. And then the blue. Ooh, very, very dangerous mix. Red. So I said if your paint is too thin, you will get mud. Some orange. And then I'll just put some yellow to finish it off. Well, I put a bit of blue on the top. Yeah, a bit of blue, why not? All right, bit of paint left over. I can use that on another one if this one works. All right, that's it, got my canvas here. Now, because I'm using 1 cup, I can just tip my canvas over, put it on the cup, and then tip the whole lot over. Or I prefer actually using my metal wall scraper that I got from my local hardware store. So I'll use that today. I'll put it on the side and then turn my canvas around. So I just put the scraper on the top, turn it upside down, put my scraper down like this and just slide it out. Easy peasy. Some people just flip their cup over really quickly onto the canvas, but I'm sure if I try that, I'm just going to get paint all over the place. Now that should be heaps of paint for this canvas. If you have too little paint, you just have to overstretch everything. A little too much paint, you've got a bit of room to play with, and it's easy to cover your canvas. All right, so I'm going to pull my cup this way as I lift it to spread the paint out towards me. Fingers crossed that it works. Okay, you've got your fingers crossed for me? Oh, heaps. I'll just pour some over the edges. The dregs tend to be a bit brown. You can see a bit of brown happening there, but we'll see. I've got cells happening already, so I said it's very reactive. Okay. Now I might just spread it a bit first to get it down to the other end. Just to this corner. To the other corner. I'll bring it all back to get rid of some of this yucky brown. Okay, now I'm going to torch it. see what sells proper. It's the heat from the gun that gets the oil rising to the surface and creating the cells. Don't get too close or you will just burn your paint. And don't keep it in one spot for too long. Well, getting lots of cells down this end. I am going for a very busy reptile skin look today, so I want heaps and heaps of cells. See how busy it's looking? Okay, I'll just see if I can stretch this out a bit. Well, I need to, because I need to cover the canvas down this end. I don't want to lose too much of my cells. This bottom end turned out looking pretty good. You don't have to be in a hurry. Take your time. I found with this paint the cells start off looking okay, but then they get all broken looking for some reason. I want to go back down to this other end. Yes, I've gone away from the A2 paints, acrylics. So I don't really like them. I think the Montmartre paints are better. I was just going to see if I could get this like reptile look again. Bring it back, stretch out those. I didn't end up with too much brown, thankfully. Okay, now I wasn't after pretty looking cells, and I knew I wasn't going to get nice round pretty cells today. I think I more or less ended up with the look I ended up with last time. I'll just give it another torch. Still heaps of air bubbles. Okay, I'll just go around the edges with my palette knife to get rid of the drips. And at the same time, I'll make sure all the white bits are gone. Now this painting will continue to develop over the next little while.
I said before, getting rid of the drips stops your paint from falling off the canvas too, because the drips can pull the paint off. And they look untidy as well. Right, done. I'll just wait a little bit to let this painting do its thing, and then I'll bring you in for a closer look so you can see how it turned out. I think it's going to look very much like the other one I did, which is great. That's what I was after today. Okay, here's the finished painting. As you can see, it is extremely busy looking. I was going for an interesting sort of like reptile skin look, which I think I'll get that once it dries. And see how we get sort of weird looking cells. I think particularly happens to the red for some reason. I won't be buying the A2 paint again, but if you're after this sort of look, by all means give it a go. Because you can't really keep paint once you've mixed your silicone in it, I use my leftover paints to do this little 20 by 30, I think, size canvas. As you can see, I got similar results. If you like the really busy look, it's certainly interesting to look at. There's lots of patterns and colours and little rings happening within rings. So I do find that rather pretty. Well, that was interesting, wasn't it? I certainly ended up with the painting I thought I was going to get. A super duper crazy finish with just a gazillion cells and most of them not properly keeping their shape. I was sort of expecting that with the Chroma A2 acrylics and the silicone together. I think if you use the A2 Chroma acrylics without any cell enhancers in them, they probably work. But if you want nice looking cells, I'd probably steer clear from the Chroma A2 paints and use Montmartre paints instead. Also, keep in mind that if you're going to use red, yellow and blue together, there's a big risk you're going to get brown. So keep your colours reasonably thick, and that way you may avoid some of the risk a little bit. But do keep that in the back of your mind. Those colours together in a painting often end up with brown bits in it. So just be careful. Well, as usual, if you enjoyed the video today, please press the like button. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, please take a moment to subscribe. So, happy painting, and we'll see you next time.